This episode does contain discussion of sexual violence, so viewer discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to Full Disclosure, a podcast project that lets me spend more time than I'd ever get on the radio with interesting people. Although this week, I think for the first time ever, I have spent time on the radio with my guest, and now we're doing Full Disclosure. Fatima Whitbread, welcome.
Thank you, James. I'm really delighted to be here, and I'm looking forward to this podcast. It's
a privilege to have you, not least because you're box fresh from the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Awards, where you picked up the Helen Rollason Award for achievement in the face of adversity.
You know, I was mighty proud about that. Having been a past winner in 1987.
And a runner-up the year before. I've done my research.
Yeah, you knew that. So to be receiving this award, the Helen Rollason Award, was quite special for me because Helen and I were friends anyway.
Of course.
And I'd obviously been Helen's first interview for, an international athlete. I just finished the World Championships and won, and I got a call from Helen. She said, I wonder if you don't mind. She said, if I could, you could be my first interview. And I said, of course not. And so it was wonderful that she gave me this opportunity through the Helen Rollason Award to get my message out regarding our young children, which is what I'm doing now.
Yes.
Great children's advocacy, really, for children in the care system.
Because, all winners of that award have faced adversity. Mm-hmm. But crikey, anyone who thinks they know your story almost certainly doesn't know all of it, do they?
Well, back in the 80s then, there were the golden years for sport.
Yes.
I think it was a beautiful time to everything was flourishing, and it was a great opportunity, I think, for sportsmen and women then, because Sky TV wasn't around and you had two main terrestrial TVs, ITV, BBC. And anything that was projected out there, in championship level, it became massive. So we had a great platform to be recognised for the achievements. But this day and age, obviously, everything's on hold, isn't it? You can record it's split.
You'd feel like the whole country would be watching an Olympic event or a World Championships or even the snooker. The whole country would stop and watch the snooker because there were so few.
And then when you
choices.
Go to the supermarket, that's all everyone spoke about, So it was a really major time for me. But during that period, what was running concurrently underneath was my life, because obviously I'd been abandoned as a baby. And then some would say left to die. A neighbour heard a baby crying in a flat, and she hadn't seen anybody coming or going for a couple of days. So she called the police and they banged the door down, rescued the baby, which was myself. And then spent the next 6 months recovering from malnutrition and nappy rash. And during that period, Hackney Borough Council made me a ward of court, and then I spent the next 14 years of my life in children's homes.
When were you first told that story? When did you first hear that?
Well, like all care leavers, you have the opportunity to be able to pick up your papers, which is what I wanted to do from Somerset House and find out more about what was my background, my history, and which often the case a lot of these young children like to know.
Yes, of course.
Some of it's good and some of it's not so good, and I'm also very keen to make sure that some of these children, when they go and get their papers, they've got somebody that can sit with them.
Yes.
Because there's a lot for them. Some of it's a shock,
yeah.
When they find out what's gone on in their lives and why they were sort of left to go in homes or being fostered, and that's hard to process. But for me, it wasn't that difficult. I kind of lived that life for 14 years, and I knew that there wasn't really anybody out there. The biological mum, and I call it the biological mum because for the first 5 years of my life, I lived in Hertfordshire, and I had no communication whatsoever, and nobody sat me down and said, look, this is the reason why you're in care. And I think that's the most difficult thing for a young child, to process that. And their minds start thinking, they get trapped in their head like a prison. And yes, they arrive in care with a particular set of issues, emotional trauma, abandonment, neglect, and trust issues as well. And and that's, as I said, there's no fault of their own. And then, of course, back in the 60s, there's always a stigmatisation with children that lived in the care system. They must be the naughty kids, that's why they're in the homes. Well, in actual fact, no, it's not. And for me, it was no different. And So it was a tough old period of time whilst in the children's home. There were 25 other kids there, James, and I can remember always playing in the front room, and anybody that faced the car park, and anybody that came in, I would always say, "Is that my mummy coming to get me?" Which is, quite...
So you're conscious of what you haven't got, but you don't know why.
Absolutely, and that's the key thing. And what's difficult about that is you never really get above a certain parapet, because the kids that are coming and going all the time, some are short stay, some are never going to get to go back like me with parents. They're the long stay, and then you've got some that parents are struggling, so it's respite, short, or disabled,
of course.
and they come and go. But when the kids come and go, they're all emotionally disturbed.
Yes.
So there's always a sea of emotion, and it's really hard to get that equilibrium where you can feel you can rise above it.
Well, you don't even have the vocabulary, Fatima, do you? That you don't even know the words to describe the feelings or the experiences that you're going through.
Yeah.
Just so you know, while we have this conversation, I've got 2 godsons who spent time in the care system and were subsequently adopted, and I was adopted myself, but at a very young age. But which is very different.
I've read up on you too,
haven't
James.
You? There you go. But I remember at school sometimes when people in good faith would ask me, they'd say, if you're really naughty or if your parents change your mind, will you get sent back to the children's home? And I'd never even spent time in a children's home. So much ignorance around.
There's a lot of misconception where children are concerned. And that's hence the reason why Fatima's UK campaign is, I'm the founder of it, and I'm, very keen and passionate about these young children in the care system sector. And also, James, the care system sector itself, it needs rejuvenating. It's antiquated. There's a lot of people that are working there, a lot of good people. They're all spotted all over the place. What I've learnt about the care system sector is that the paid and unpaid workforce, there are a lot, but you cannot... You need to bring them together to have a body and harness the power of one voice. It's basically what I'm trying to do, in order for them to have a lot more, collaboration with one another. Like any business, if you want to thrive, you've got to put it to the challenge. You've got to challenge it and benchmark it, and bring the best for the outcomes for our kids, because this is never going to work. It's already in the doldrums, and
it's over. I mean, there's more people in it than ever before, I think.
Well, we've got 105,000 kids in the care system as we speak.
It's extraordinary.
33% of councils are seeing a weekly increase of kids coming into the care system. Well, we're already 4.2 million people living in poverty, 800,000 living on the food banks, and we're supposed to be the 5th biggest economy in the world, and it's a bit of a frightening. I think we're kind of at an evolutionary crossroads here.
Yeah.
For me, I mean, I'm banging a drum for the kids in the care system. I represent that because I lived in the children's system, for 14 years, so I understand what these kids are going through. How do we address this? I mean, basically what we're talking about is a lot of our kids, are getting groomed, targeted. Our young girls are being abused, sexually abused, because they want is love and attention, and there's a lot of undesirables out there,
of course,
James, that are targeting them.
You know about that as well.
Yes, I've been sexually abused in my life too. Yeah, I mean, as I say, I can relate very much to these young people, and I think the most important thing, we give them hope, we bring some change, and we can deliver what it is they need, to be able to be on that unstoppable human path to reach their goals. That's what it's all about.
Your son said a lovely thing about you, didn't he, Ryan? She said, because just listening to you talk now, I sense that these children couldn't have a better champion. But Ryan said, my mum's story is about a child born into nothing who triumphed despite all the odds imaginable. She never gives up. She always sees the light at the end of the tunnel. Her will to succeed has been born from her will to survive, and that's it, isn't it? I think that's what people listening, whether they knew much about you before, even so early in the conversation, are going to be sensing that astonishing drive. I'll ask you shortly when you first noticed that, but let's begin, because you just mentioned that when you were 5, you did have love in that first home. Was it Auntie Ray who?
Well, Corrie in the first children's home.
Right.
Funny enough, I mean, Auntie Ray, that
was the second one.
That's the second children's home. Just touch on briefly about Corrie first. Yeah. Corrie, back in the 60s, there were really few people. We had a matron in the home It was very perfunctional, so there was never any emotional needs being met for the kids. We were just numbers, and we had to be, because there were 25 kids in the home, we had to be, like a conveyor belt. Everything had to be done very promptly, so all the kids were up at 6 o'clock, all lined up outside the bathroom, all got ready one at a time. Everything was communal toys, communal clothes. So you couldn't really get attached to anything.
You didn't have your own clothes?
No.
To speak of?
Yeah, I mean, if you got attached to something, you might not see it again for months, because it would get, when
go round the cycle, to someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Not that worried me. I mean, I never got attached to anything, and subsequently, I think, like years later, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
You need to be able to detach yourself from stuff.
Just belongings.
Yeah. So, I mean, Corrie and a couple of 16-year-olds, as they were, came into the home to help the kids, to help get them ready, bath them, dress them, take them out for walks. And so I still keep in touch with Corrie to this day, actually. She's a lovely lady. She still lives there in Hertfordshire. That's where I was moved. And then at the age of 5, I remember the matron called to me at the top of the stairs. She said, "Fatima, be down here tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock." She said, "Your mother's coming to get you with your social worker, and you'll now be moved to a new home where your half-brother and sister will be living." Yeah, and at 5 years old, that's quite a lot to process.
You didn't even know you had a half-brother?
Well, nobody told me I had a mother, so I didn't. That was quite a shock in itself. But then to say half-brothers and sisters... I mean, to be fair, I had a sleepless night, because I was thinking, well, this is my home and all these children are my family.
That's all you've ever known.
Yeah, it's all I've ever known. So, at 9 o'clock the next morning, I sat on the bench waiting in the hallway, and then I saw this opaque glass, this pinky cerisi movement behind the opaque glass window at the front door.
Yeah.
And when the house matron answered the door, this rather large lady stepped in with black curly hair, and she smiled at the matron, and I saw she had a gold tooth and the woofest perfume that came in at the same time. I mean, I just thought, as a young kid. And then there was a slightly mousy-coloured lady with a duffel coat, laughing away, smiling at me and smiling at oh, that must be my mummy. Because this is the way, kids think.
Of course
it's a perception of life. I thought, this must be my mummy. Yeah. That was who I wanted, somebody who's happy and could connect with me. Yeah. And unfortunately, the biological mum never once spoke to me, never made eye contact with me at all. And I remember the whole journey down to the new children's home. I cried looking out the window thinking, why am I leaving the only thing I ever know? Ripped away from that.
Do we know why the biological mother wanted to relocate you?
I think back then, GLC that was, they wanted to get families back together.
Right.
However, I mean, there's a world of difference between putting families together that have been together and parted for unfortunate reasons,
of course,
and somebody that has completely no connection with that person, 5 years from a baby, they're being abandoned from the start. Which sometimes one would say is a prisonable offence to leave a baby to die.
Well, of course.
And also then to then try to integrate them back into the family. I mean, I feared that from the word "say go" when they said that. When we got to the second children's home, James, I can remember the house auntie met us in the car park, and she said, "Run along into the back garden." She said, "You'll find the other children there." She said, "Whilst I talk to your mother." And I sort of went through the kitchen area out to the back garden.
You're 5 years old?
5 years old. So I walked through and found my way to the back garden. And then I felt this little tug on my clove. And I looked down, and this little girl, she was looking up at me. She said, "Oh, you must be my half-sister." And I kind of looked at her. "Oh, yeah, I must be your half-sister." It was quite a surreal, feeling of, oh, this is family.
Right.
And
First time.
First time. And then there was all the children playing on the climbing frame. So she sort of pulled me to the front climbing frame, and as I was walking up the steps, I felt this hand come across my chest and pulled toward this person. She said, "You look after your sister, I cut her your throat." And she mimicked her hand across her throat, and it was the biological mum. With that, the two children ran to her and started talking in the mother tongue.
Right.
And it was then I realised they knew the mother.
They'd spent time with her. In my own way, I processed, they know her. Right. I don't, I'm the stranger.
and I felt very unsettled.
So you'd had a sense of family for about a minute and a half before it was dislocated and ripped away from you again.
Yeah. And then, of course, she disappeared with the children, and then I suddenly thought, why am I left here?
Why have I been brought
Why have I brought here? And of course, it was then told to me within the subsequent weeks ahead, your mother's going to come and take you back to live with them. And I said, I started shaking my head. No, I don't want to go, because it scared the life out of me when she started putting a hand across my throat like that. And
So she, in your mind, you've had an idealised idea of a mother, and within moments of meeting her for the first time, she's become monstrous.
Absolutely.
Oh,
complete stranger who
worse than that.
Well, unfortunately, but these things happen, unfortunately, with children's lives. And what we've got to remember is that a lot of these kids, when they have these particular set of issues, it's usually born from that abuse, and there's
trauma,
and neglect, and in the isolation of in your own mind, not being able to process why.
And the new home was measurably worse than the old home.
Sadly for me, I was lucky in a way, and as it goes, they tried to bring us back together, and I was told that I'd have to go even though I didn't want to go. So I had to try and get my head around that, and suddenly I started thinking, well, maybe it's not a bad idea. Maybe I will get the family that I wanted.
Right.
So I started to try and think positively about that, as children do. But I was still in the back of my mind a bit worried. And then, of course, when we started walking, she came and got us, and the two children came as well. And we walked toward the bus stop, and she stopped, and she started poking me in the ribs. And as she was poking me in the ribs, she was reaching in her bag on her opposite shoulder, and she stuck a half a crown, because this was back in the 60s, you remember, a half a crown in my hand, and she said, "You off. We don't want you, we don't love you." And the children just mimicked everything she said. We don't want you, we don't love you. And I kind of was very upset. I started to cry.
Yes.
But then they carried on walking. They just carried on walking. And I stood there, and I had this half a crown in my hand. I was crying about someone I didn't really want to be with anyway. So confused emotionally. And then thinking I've got to go back to the children's home, where I didn't feel happy there either. So I didn't get on with the house parents. But by the time I got to the children's home, the auntie said, "Well, what are you doing back here?" And I said, she didn't want me. So she took the half a crown and said, "Well, you didn't want to go. Go on, off you go in the garden." And that was that.
So she pocketed the coin.
And she pocketed the coin. Yeah, I'd have liked that myself, to get some blackjacks and fruit salads.
And I think this is where, probably previously already, but particularly now, this is where you are, without realising it, you're tightening the lid on the trauma, and and later we'll get to it. It blows off, doesn't it? But that is, you can see now where you are pushing that down. But there were moments of light even in the new house, and this is where
that was amazing for me. Our Auntie Ray, she was my bright shining star. And she was really a good egg. And all the kids loved Auntie Ray. And I'd always I'd get on top of the staircase, halfway up. There's a little port window. And I'd look, because I could hear her walking up and down the road. I knew when she was coming. And I would watch where she would go to. And I could see she was living on the end of the road on the corner there. And when she'd come back up, it's great, she's coming on duty. Hey! and she, every day when she came in, I used to hide under the bed sheets, because I called her the tickle monster, because she would wake us up, tickle us. And good job she did, because otherwise I'd still be there now. But she humanised us kids. We just knew she got us. She understood. I felt safe with Auntie Ray, and I don't know, my mind was always constantly thinking, this is the mummy I would love, this is the mummy I would want. And so eventually I decided that I was going to pick all these daffodils around the home, and I nicked it in and out of people's gardens, which I shouldn't have done. And picked these daffodils, and then one day I walked down to where she lived, and I held the flowers behind my back, and I knocked on the door. And then when she opened it, I said, "Will you be my mummy?" I presented the flowers to her. "Oh, fat," she said. come on round the back, let's talk about this. And I said, oh, I thought I was going to be in trouble. So she said, no, come on, sit down. She gave me a cup of tea and a biscuit. She said, Fats, she said, let me tell you, she said, I can't just be your mummy. She said, I have to be mummy to everybody there in the children's home. She said, but here's the thing. She said, I can't always be there. She said, and you are. She said, so why don't you be there, mummy, when I'm not there? And you know, James, that taught me a really valuable lesson in life. 2 valuable lessons which changed the way I looked at life. I appreciated then that in giving you receive. So giving those children the love and the security they need on a constant basis also gave it back to me, because that's what they needed, that as well. And then it also taught me that swiveling the lens and looking outward rather than inward, which is a lot of kids do emotionally when they're disturbed and traumatised.
Yes.
They grow up feeling victimised.
Of course.
And for me, I didn't grow up like that because I wanted to help. I became the guardian, the protector of these kids. And, you know, that was the greatest thing, a lesson that I learned from Auntie Ray. And every child, I believe, should have a bright shining star, somebody who they can connect with, someone who believes in them, someone who's like going to be a role model to them that can help them, because that's the most important thing for young children today, is to give them a chance not just to survive but to thrive.
But you know, there's a danger of, isn't there, of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good, because she couldn't become your mum, but she could still give you a lot. She could still play an important role in your life. And so you know, better than nothing is quite a crass phrase, but it might not be everything, but it's a hell of a lot better than nothing.
Yes, and it's what's important about that, though, and lessons that we all learn in life. I mean, to me, it's always been about self-growth.
Yes.
The experience of going through the most difficult times in your life and bringing out the best in what you can see in that. It's never perfect. Life is not. We all, you know, welcome to being a human being. That's part of life, you know. And for me, it was, you know, it was tough. It definitely it wasn't easy being in children's homes for 14 years.
No.
Because it was stigmatisation, a lot of that during that period of time. I mean,
Well, let's talk about when you start school. Does particularly, I suppose, secondary school, presumably everybody finds out fairly quickly what your situation is.
Yeah, I mean.
When teachers nasty, or just kids, or anyone?
Yeah, no, I mean, back then it was a lot easier, I think, to say things and, you know, get away with them. Nobody called it. But I pretty much learnt from the words they go and being protector for the kids. I was also somebody who would call stuff. You know, if I thought there was an injustice, I would call it, because, you know, I was trying to protect the kids.
Yeah.
You know, and the house parents that we had, they were very young, and it was just a job to them.
Right.
And our emotional needs weren't being helped at all. And we were told children should be seen and not heard. That was an era then.
Yeah.
And don't tell tales and run along out in the garden. And if a child fell over, it was like, well, just get on with it. But for a lot of these kids in the children's homes, it's a lot more difficult, because they're already emotionally traumatised. So a love and a hug and a cuddle, you know, it means the world to them, you know. And if they're not getting that anyway, and then suddenly they find themselves in difficult circumstances where perhaps, like for me, for instance, I remember being told my father was going to come, my biological father was going to come and visit one weekend. So I sat all day long Saturday on the front wall in the garden, sat there for hours, and then I was told, well, it looks like he's not coming, so go and run along in the back garden.
So no one's taking time.
Nobody's giving you any emotional comfort.
To imagine what you must be feeling, just basic empathy.
Yeah, empathy, there was none. And again, I decided, because I was told, maybe you come tomorrow. So in my mind, I thought, I'm going to go and sit on that wall again tomorrow. But that it didn't materialise. So it's just very hard times, I think, back then in the 60s.
Were you angry?
Because I had Auntie Ray and she taught me about looking after the other children, I wouldn't say I wasn't not angry, because I remember that particular day when I was so upset. I ran upstairs to the bedroom and I had a Loopy-Loo doll. And that was the only thing I treasured, this Loopy-Loo doll. And I was so annoyed, I bit Loopy-Loo's face. And I left my teeth marks in her face, and I cried my eyes out because I'd ruined my dolly. You know, that was the only way I could express myself. I couldn't talk to anybody. And I thought I was mad about that I couldn't talk to anybody, nobody there to talk to, because Auntie Ray wasn't on duty at the weekend. And then I ran upstairs, as I said, and I ended up staying in the bedroom, so annoyed.
And how big was, in your mind, by this age, how big was the prospect of the biological mother or the biological father? Because you were frightened of the biological mother already.
Yeah, I wasn't interested in making any, reconciliations with the biological mum. She frightened the life out of me. But with regard to Dad, I didn't know. I would like to have known how he was. You know, I was hopeful that he was going to be a nice man.
Right.
But in the paperwork, both of them came in the 60s because the Turks and the Sips landed in London, and basically they were out for a night and they met, and obviously, hence the night of indiscretion.
Yes.
and I understand that her lover was in prison at the time, and during that time obviously I arrived, and when he came out then it was like, get rid of the baby.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what putting two and two together. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I was learning a lot from the other children, because I was at ages 6 and 7. I was the old timer in the house.
It's incredible, isn't it? You'll be the
one who looked after the little kids and making sure they were all right.
I mean, it's a chicken and egg situation, that, isn't it? Because it suited you, that role, I think, and it might not have done. It did actually. That's nature rather than nurture, maybe. That was who you are.
Nature and nurture, all
of course,
for us, they're the same things. When you're in children's homes, you know, you cling to people that show you a little bit of love and attention. But equally, also at the start, because I've been letting down quite a bit, I then started to put the walls and barriers up, you know, protect myself from being let down again.
Of course.
So I didn't want to be let down. And I think this is true of most kids that live in the care system sector.
Inevitably.
Yeah, they have detachment issues, you know,
yes,
and it's understandable. And then, of course, Auntie Ray was, as I said, she was my saviour in many ways.
So you let her in?
Yeah, I let Auntie Ray in because I knew she was a good one.
You've got good instincts.
Well, I think
people.
Intuitive.
Yeah.
You do, because nobody ever takes the time to discuss anything with you. So you're picking up on vibration and energy.
Yes.
And you listen to and you watch. And going back to your point with children in the schools, most of us kids, we'd have to go, as we go out the door. It's quite funny, really.
Yeah.
You'd get a spoon of blackstrap molasses, which was awful stuff, stuck under your, like in your mouth.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd hold it under my tongue while I got to, you know, spat it out. But we'd all go in a long line to school, and we'd have the auntie in front who was the auntie who was there on duty that day, and then we'd see all the mums and the dads with all the children.
Yeah.
And that's when it was told, I suppose, to the kids, oh, they're the kids from the homes.
So everyone knows from
you're the kids from the homes. And the other thing was, we would have free school dinners.
Right. And that involved stigma as well in those days. Yeah.
And I would never like to do that. So what I used to do is go around the back of the bike shed and play Penny Up the Wall. Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course.
Penny Up the Wall. So I'd line up all the boys and the girls at the back, and often win enough money to earn my dinner money, and also my friend Alma, who lived in the home round the corner, her dinner money. And if I hadn't had enough, what we'd do is I'd say, right, let's go over to the corner shop at the old chippy, and I'd say to the old girl there, you got any old scraps? And she'd say, oh yeah, that's all right. And she'd throw a few chips in as well. And I'd say to you, got a pickled onion too? Oh, you cheeky one, she'd say, and she'll throw it in, go on, up it. And yeah, I mean, the funniest thing was, I'd always be, for some reason or another, find myself outside the headmaster's office. I mean, it was really difficult to concentrate in school.
Right.
Emotionally. It was too much. Couldn't concentrate on my academics. So I'd find myself in a lot of trouble one way or another.
For messing about?
Silly things.
Were you a fighter?
Talking. Well, I was more a person that would protect those that were bullied.
Yes.
I don't know why. I was always on that side.
This doesn't surprise me.
And if someone was being bullied, I'd go and pick on them and say, you leave that, you know, and that's when I'd get in trouble.
Right, yeah.
And it would be silly things like that. And I'd find myself outside the headmaster's office, and it would never happen now, James. The headmaster would say to me, right, now run over to the shop, he said, and get me 20 non-embassy tip cigarettes, he said. And when I came back, there was always a penny change, and that was the penny that started me off on penny
Playing
up the
that was
wall.
your stake money.
Yeah, it's mistake money. It's so funny, you know, that
It's a different world, really, isn't it? It's
definitely.
extraordinary.
And I remember we had also a spinster, a Welsh lady, Mrs. Meredith, who was a headmistress, and I don't know, for some unknown reason, I was never on the right side of her.
Right.
And it was always a very difficult situation because, she always used to like to pull me out in front of the class, slap my wrists with a ruler or something like that. Yeah, and I didn't really particularly enjoy school, and it wasn't until I found sport that was my saviour.
When did you find it? How did you find it?
Well, I used to often play in the school playground with the boys, kick a ball about, and then and I watched them do a PE lesson once, and they were throwing cricket balls from the top end of the green to the bottom end, and they weren't quite making it. I thought, I bet I can do that. And I challenged them, and of course I did. I got the ball right down the other end. It was more determination than anything.
What's ESP? You're doing it with.
Yeah.
What made you think? I mean, were you competitive before you discovered sport? Would you be competitive in board games at the home and stuff?
I know. I think that where that was driven from was the fact that I wanted to be accepted.
Right. Yeah.
I wanted to people please, to be accepted. And I felt that I needed to be good at something in order to be accepted and be respected. Because otherwise it was, you're just the kids in the home, you're trouble.
Yeah.
And we weren't basically trouble. It was just that we were lost souls.
Yes.
You know, and from struggling emotionally. So, I mean, that's where I found myself with sport. And then, of course, I realised I started to play netball and hockey. And I just worked at it, James. I wasn't particularly outstanding, but I was a grafter, someone who was determined to achieve. And when I got my eye on the target, I just make sure, you know, I come back with the goods.
And a leader, because you became captain.
Yeah.
So oddly, given that you ended up being a superstar at a solitary, at an individual event, you everything you've said so far, you've got the makings of a great leader.
Oh, 100%. That was what it was all about, really, because I used to protect the kids in the children's homes, do away with the bullies at school. Mm-hmm. I got to be head girl at school, so I must have been doing something right. They made me head girl, so which was good. Sort out all those smokers around the corner. And then when I got rid of them, I'd have a cigarette. In peace and quiet.
Yeah.
No, naughty girl.
And were there any lessons you enjoyed? Were there any subjects you enjoyed?
I used to love domestic science, cooking.
Yes.
I liked art, very good art. I got my A-level art and cooking, and also I liked history. And I was at the bottom of the class in math, and Mrs. Meredith, who was the spinster, she always used to be taunting me, "You'll never amount to anything, you'll never do any good."
Really?
And I used to say to her, "Well, why do you think that?" She said, "Well, you're at the bottom of the class, aren't you?" So she said, "Try and prove to her," and I guess it's her way of trying to say to me, "Try and prove to me that you can do it." And you know, I worked and worked at it, and I actually got to the top of the class. Yeah, I got to the first class instead of the bottom, and then she put me in the second. I was a bit disappointed about that. I said, "Why have you done that?" So she said, "Well, because you were struggling to stay in the first class, and you'll be so much better when you perform when you're in the second class," which I thought was sensible, really. Yeah.
Fair enough. Did the sport then changed everything? I mean, if this was a Hollywood movie, this is where the background music changes slightly.
Yes, that's really. I mean, I was lucky. I found the love of the Whitbread family through sport. I mean, at the age of 11, I was always being told in the children's home, "Oh, you'll never amount to anything. You'll end up in board stalls, because that's where you went."
Yeah,
when you were
young offenders institutions now.
And it was all about marijuana and prostitution back in the 70s.
Right.
And I can remember being petrified about what's going to happen to me, because it was 16 then.
Yeah. When you got
care levers, but now it's 18, still way too young in my opinion.
Because it's like cutting an umbilical. There's no
support.
Yeah.
You're out there on your own. You're isolated. You know, you're kind of invisible as well. Nobody ever wants to really connect with you.
I didn't know it was even younger when
16. Yeah. I know at the age of 11 I was panicking then.
Right.
And it's hard for kids today, because they should be concentrating on their studies. They're worrying about their future, what's going to happen to them.
Of course they are.
And most conventional families, as we know, the kids really they stay in homes up to their 28.
Yeah.
Now 28
is that
to
the average
18,
age now?
Yes, the average age.
Wow.
What a huge growth difference.
Yeah.
You know, and if in the security of a loving, unconditional loving family, that are supporting you, which have supported you all through your educational years, your friendships, and skilling you up, ready for adulthood, which is not the experience for most of these young kids in the care system.
Clearly.
And so for me, it was no different. And I would worry about that. And I remember watching Mary Peters win the Munich Olympics, which was particularly fantastic for me because BBC Awards, that award, Helen Rollason Award, Mary Peters gave me with my dear friend Colin. And I always tell this story. Mary was my great inspiration because I thought, what is it I'm going to do that's going to help me be self-financing and that I will get out of this rut that I'm in? And I'm not sure where I'm going in life. I was really scared.
Right.
And when I saw Mary at the Munich Olympics win the pentathlon, which was then, now it's the heptathlon, well, she won the gold medal. I thought, that's it. I'll be a sports star. And then I'll have a big house and I'll drive around in these fancy cars. No, not at all. No, but I wouldn't anyway because I'm very grounded like that, James. And
but you just wanted security,
I just wanted to know what it was I was going to do, and sport seemed a natural fit, and that was my direction of which I was travelling. And and I can remember a netball match we were playing.
You're 13, I think now, 13, 14 years old, are you, or even younger?
Yeah, 13.
13.
Yeah, and it's the first opportunity of winning my first medal. And I remember talking to Auntie Ray, and I said, look, this is a cup match. I said, and if we win, I want you to have the medal. Because that was like, you're my mummy who I'd want. And Auntie Ray said, don't be silly, you'll keep that yourself. And I said, no. And that was my motivation, to want to win that medal, to give it to Auntie Ray.
Gosh, yes.
So it was really important to me that we won. So as the team captain, I can remember motivating my team, and my voice was sort of rising above most of everybody else. And the whistle went, and the umpire said, young lady, keep that noise down, otherwise you'll be off. So I sort of looked and thought, oh yeah. And I carried on, and I was like quiet, but then I started, it was going 12 all, 13, 12, 13 all, and I started motivating my team again. Now bear in mind, if it was now, you'd be called a motivator.
Yes, of course.
But back then they called you a pain in the ass.
Right, you're right. Yeah.
So the whistle went again. She said, I've told you once, young lady. She said, and I'm not going to tell you again. And she said, I'll send you off. So I sort of muttered under my voice as I turned around, and her team captain said, Fats, she's strict. Yeah, she will send you off. So I kept quiet. Anyway, ended the game. We won. Yay! and I can remember giving Auntie Ray the medal. It was a fantastic feeling. And then I said to Alma, my friend who lived in the children's home around the corner, you know what? I said, it's the end of the netball season, but the start of the athletic season. So why don't we go to the local athletic club? And, we both like sport. So we decided to walk. It was about 5 miles. And we must have pocketed the money, James, because the bus fee. And when we got to the track, Alma saw the sprinters and off she went. And I saw a tall, good-looking blonde guy throwing what looked like a spear. And I thought, he looks nice, I'll go over there. And as I walked over to the runway, I saw the javelin on the floor, and I went to pick it up, and he said, you can't do that. And I said, why is that? So he then turned to the shot put coach, Jack Grinney, and Jack looked and he said, young lady, he said, you put that down, he said, and come and sit in the stand. You'll have to wait for the javelin coach to come along, he said, and then we'll see whether or not you can have a throw. So I was sort of being like all kids in the home, a bit feisty and tapping my toes, a bit of a survivor. Well, where's this coach then? And then I'm sitting there, and then Jack says, here comes the coach. And this Mini pulled up really fast and parked in the car park. And as this person walked across the infield, I went, it's that same woman on the netball court.
It's extraordinary.
Extraordinary. And I'm seeing her walking across, I thought she's never going to allow me to throw the javelin. Yeah. And of course, when Jack introduced us, before he could even say my name, she said, yes. She said, I know who you are. She said, you're Fatima, aren't you? She said, well, let me tell you, young lady, any of that cheek you showed on the netball court, she said, you won't be throwing any javelins here. So I sort of cupped my hands together and I said, I promise you I'll behave.
Right.
Yeah.
And you meant it?
Yeah, and I did. She had me right there.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to have a go at the javelin. And I love discipline.
Right, yes.
All kids love discipline.
Order.
It's order. Exactly, and my whole life was about ordering children's homes.
Because there was so much chaos.
And we all had our jobs to do.
Yeah.
Laying the table, unlaying the table, washing up, drying up, cleaning the shoes, getting up early, lining up, getting in.
You want consistency, don't you? You want to know what happens if you do something. That will be the reaction. It won't be different tomorrow.
That's right.
It'll be a normal
continuity.
Yeah,
and that's
proper continuity.
Really important for kids in the care system.
Absolutely.
Continuity is the most important thing.
Yes.
Love and security first, and then continuity.
And there was something about Margaret that spoke to you quite early on about providing that, I think.
She did, and she had a sense of humour too.
Right.
Did my mum. But anyway, she said, right. She said, well, let's go over to throw the javelin. She said, and let's have a look how you are. So I started throwing, and she said, you've got a bit of talent. Well, a few weeks later, she said, look, get Mum and Dad to come up.
Right.
She said, we can talk to them about getting some kit and get you into a competition programme.
Yeah.
So I just sort of nodded my head.
Oh.
And then she said, Jack, has Fatima got a hearing problem? So Jack said, no, why is that? Well, she said, every time I ask about Mum and Dad, he said, don't you know she's from the children's homes?
Oh, crikey.
So with that, the following week, she brought up a pair of boots and a javelin. And she said, look, I've had a young lady retired. She said, these boots are probably 2 sizes too big. And she sort of threw them at me. She said, stuff them with paper. She said, and they're yours. And I thought, wow, this is great. Nobody's ever given me anything. So I was sort of really eager to get back to the children's home with the javelin and the boots, because in the summer season we had German students that would look after us, like the house parents went off for a break.
Yeah.
And all the kids that could go home had gone.
Right.
So there was only a couple of us long stays that were there. And I said, Ingrid, come out in the garden. I'm going to show you how I throw this javelin. The funniest thing was, to get to the home, we'd have to get on the bus.
Right.
The bus driver, when the doors opened, he's sort of going like that. And then I'm nodding my head going, and pointing the spear at him. Go on the back and behave, he said. Well, it wouldn't happen today, would it?
Probably not, no. You're just carrying your own javelin around town.
Yeah, town, exactly. So it's so funny, because when I got into the garden, I took a couple of throws to get up to the end of the garden. I pulled the spud off the end of it in the vegetable patch, and I stepped forward and I said, move out of the way, I'm going to give it a really big throw this time. And of course I did, and it went smash through the French windows.
Straight through the French windows.
And Ingrid's nodding, like shaking her head in her hands. And she said, you're going to be in trouble. I said, well, what's new, Ingrid? And we laughed. And I said, no, I'll tell you what, stick it with sellotape. She said, you'll still be in trouble. And of course I was. I got a month's ban.
Right.
And so it was like very disappointing, because to be not able to do any after school activities, that was my life. Not being able to stop in and see Auntie Ray on the way home and have a cup of tea and a biscuit when she was off duty.
Yeah.
All these things make an impact on one's emotional stability. And for me it was no different. So I started to think, this is not good. And then I got a message from one of the girls in the school team. Mrs. Whitbread thinks you've bunked off with the javelin and boots and sold them. You're not interested anymore.
Crikey.
Yeah, so I thought, I can't have this. So I got up about 2:00 one morning, and I walked down the stairs, and I got out what was the French Bureau in my ignorance, an airmail envelope.
Right.
And I put, Dear Mrs. Whitbread, sorry I can't come to the track, only I smashed the French windows, but one day I'd like to be the best javelin thrower in the world. And I stuck it down. I put Mrs. Whitbread, St Chad School.
Yeah.
And the next day I sort of put it in the post box on the way to school. And I didn't hear anything for a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden I heard the phone go, and then I sort of pressed my ear to the glass window from outside, and I heard the auntie saying, no, she's been naughty. She smashed the window. She's not allowed out. And Mrs. Whitbread must have been quite persuasive, because within a week I was back at the track. And then, of course, she asked me would I like to meet the family, have tea with the family. And that was amazing. It was really lovely. I met Mr. Whitbread, John, who's sadly not with us anymore, bless him. And the 2 boys, Greg, who was 4, and Kirk, who was 2. Now, obviously, I'm very good with kids, because I lived and brought up with kids, so we got on very well.
I think Margaret's described it as almost completing the family, you slotting into a space they didn't know existed until you turned up.
Yeah, it was amazing. I think it was a good combination.
Did you trust them quickly?
Always very difficult for both sides.
Yes.
When we talk about kids being fostered, that's really important for a child to have that opportunity of love. That's the best thing you can ever give a child: security and love. For being fostered or adopted is always a quite a challenge, but no more so than any family that have children, But so for me, it was all about settling in a way that I felt comfortable, seen, heard, and valued, and the same for them. That I was sort of happy in the family nest. And within a couple of weeks, she said, "Would I like to come and stay for a couple of weeks during the summer season?" And of course, I said, "Yeah, I'd love that." And we got on really well. And at the end of that 2 weeks, I remember Greg saying to his mum, "Do we have to take her back to the shop?" And we all laughed about it. And of course, by the time Margaret took me back to the children's home, she said to me, "How would you like it," she said, if you were to become a Whitbread?"
Wow.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's all I ever wanted to be, is, have a family.
Yeah.
And I was overwhelmed, But there was a slight little part of me that felt that I was not going to be like, let Auntie Ray down, because Auntie Ray was the mum I really wanted, as a child.
Yes, of course.
And she was somebody very special in my life. And when I got into the back door, and Mrs. Whitbread said to me, "That's all right, she can still be friends and still be part of our family."
Yeah.
So when we went in the back door, Mrs. Whitbread told the house auntie, and the house auntie started saying, "Oh, you're leaving us, are you?" And then she said, "What are you going to tell Auntie Ray?" And I thought, well, this is so,
It's not right,
yeah,
is it?
it's so bad, in terms of the psyche, of thinking that she should be really happy for any child that finds the love of a family. Mrs. Whitbread left, and I sat in the corner of the kitchen because then the house auntie was going on about Auntie Ray, and Auntie Ray was due on.
Yeah.
She was due to come in on duty, and as she was talking, I could hear Auntie Ray coming in the back door, and I sat there and was trying to shrink back into the seat because I didn't know what to say to her, and the house auntie said, "Oh, well, go on then, tell her your good news. Tell Auntie Ray your good news." And Auntie Ray sort of looked at me, "What's that then, Fats?" And before I could even say anything, she said, the house auntie said, "Well, she's leaving us. She's leaving us to go and live with the Whitbreads." And so Auntie Ray, as true as Auntie Ray would, she said, "Fats," she threw her arms around me. She said, "I couldn't be happier for you." She said, "That's all you've ever wanted, to have the love and security of a family."
Because she wanted the best for you.
She wanted the best for me, yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And now we approach the period of your life which people will be familiar with, because you slot quite perfectly into the Whitbread family. There's an unpleasant episode involving the biological mother, isn't there, which puts a sort of...
Well, when I won the World Championships.
Well, I was thinking more about
her
stopping the adoption. And
yeah, that was unfortunately a dark part of my life, which is something that I've had to do a lot of healing with.
Yes.
And I had child psychiatry for as well, because I was sexually abused by the mother's lover. And it was not a very... It came about because the authorities again wanted to try and get us together as a family, and I was desperate not to go. And Auntie Ray tried to make a call and stop it, because she wasn't too happy, because the biological mum came down to pick me up, and she had two fellas, and Auntie Ray called them pimps. And they were just sitting in the front room goggle-eyeing.
Right.
And she said, "I don't like this. I don't like this." But the authorities said, "No, must go." So, yeah, unfortunately, that weekend I was sexually abused and also held at knife point, and had a small table like this, crashed over the top of my head, told to shut up because I was screaming. And the knife pointed at me, and, "I'll cut your throat if you..." I was very lucky as well, because the neighbour did hear. And I don't think she's the same neighbour that...
No.
Yeah, but the neighbour did come and bang on the door. And, but it was a bit too late. I mean, it was...
I'm sorry.
Sexual abuse happened, and also... it was a terrible time.
The Whitbreads then just represent sanctuary in every imaginable way.
Yeah.
Was there ever any sense from you that if I'll ask this question carefully, did you put yourself under pressure to be brilliant at javelin in order to make sure that you'd stay in the bosom?
My mum didn't want me to throw.
She didn't. Good.
My mum said to me, look, she said, you don't have to throw the javelin. And I said, well, you're kidding. I said, that's exactly what I want to do. I love what I do in sport. I was already playing county hockey,
right,
and I was the youngest ever player for the first 11. So so I was a county hockey player. I could have gone on international. I also got offered a job at 17. I offered a place in the Whiteman Cup for golf,
right, yeah,
and 60,000 a year. That wasn't too bad back in the 70s.
And the rest.
Yeah. And then I decided, no, it's too soon for me to start travelling, with golf.
You've only just settled. You've only just found a home, haven't you, really?
Exactly.
Gosh.
The love of the Whitbreads.
You knew your own mind, didn't you?
Yeah.
In every way.
Definitely.
And how quickly did it become clear that you would be a world-class athlete at the javelin?
That was my heart's desire. That was my passion, and that was, the drive. I mean, the combination of having a steely inner strength from being in the children's homes and the passion of sport, was something that I always, gave me a sense of freedom and a sense of achievement when I was at school. You couldn't take those things away from me. So that was naturally a normal, fit for me to be carrying on.
And did it live up to your dreams, Fatima, when you won medals, when you broke world records? I love the story of you breaking the world record the first time and just trying to qualify for the second round, but but it just exploded out of your hand. Did it deliver what you dreamt it would deliver?
Well,
did you feel on top of the world?
The biggest thing that it done for me, it gave me a sense of purpose and understanding in my life, because it's the experience really is self-growth, and it was a wonderful acclamation of success. To stand on the podium after all that hard work and effort. It took me 11 years before I won my first major championships. It's a lot of work in anyone's mind. Apprenticeship.
Yes.
A long apprenticeship, a lot of hard work, but mum and daughter, athlete and coach, we both conquered the world together.
Is that what it was like, arm in arm?
Yeah, we were there, because, I always used to talk to Jeff Capes when I wanted to know about strength work. I used to go and sprint with Daley Thompson's group and Verona Elder.
Yeah.
I used to do cross running. I used to train three.
This is like the Avengers Assemble, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I trained 3 times a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
And I
weren't messing about.
No, I wasn't. And I had 8,000 calories a day to consume, because the amount of training that you do.
Yeah.
I was only small.
Sure.
And most of the girls on an average were 5, 7, 8.
Right.
Me be 5, 5, 2.
Yeah.
And so I needed to be pound for pound good and very precise. And I'm a perfectionist. I love a challenge and I want to make it work. So that's.
And
it did. Yeah.
86 was the massive year, really, wasn't it, in Athens, and then the honours, the MBE, Sports Personality of the Year, and then in 88, it's like lots of bad planets align at the same time. You're poorly with glandular fever.
I'll tell you the story about that, because I never really discuss it. But what happened was in 1987, 86 was a great. Let me just run back. 86. The breaking the world record in the qualifying round was amazing, but I was constantly being told by everyone, nobody's ever gone back the next day and won.
Right.
Who's broken?
Peaked too early.
Yeah, peaked too early, they say. And the pressure would be too much for you to go back the next day and win the gold, but it wasn't. I just loved it. I threw the second longest throw in the history of the event, only to be beaten by my own throw the day before.
Yeah.
So that was triumphant. But then, of course, I started then realising I was no longer in the shadows. The expectation was quite great where the media were concerned, the public, and my own expectations and friends and families. So the pressure table started to turn a little bit.
Right.
Then I was starting to realise, there's a big responsibility with sport, with anything. anything that's successful, you start having to learn to deal with the world's media, how to hold yourself in the public eye, and work with people as well. So there was a lot of big responsibilities. This was all coming in at the same time, remember, and also I was only not long out of the children's home.
Yeah.
Suddenly to be thrusted in the limelight, that was a lot to deal with. Because the next thing what happened is in the World Championships, I won Britain its only gold medal, which was a fantastic achievement, which, again, I was voted World Athlete of the Year. I also got the MBE that year. It was amazing by our late Queen, which was a wonderful experience. And, of course, I was voted Britain's top athlete by the way of the public with the BBC Sports Personality of the Year Award, which was...
It's an extraordinary series of successes, isn't it?
Yeah, and the Sports Writers Association and Athletes Writers Association #1 Sportswoman of the Year. And it was a big year. And then, of course, then what happened was a Sun newspaper took a picture of me in a frame and took a picture of the biological mum holding the frame, saying, "I want my biological daughter back." And that tilted.
Some money changed hands, probably.
Yeah, and then it was just an amazing. It stopped me in my tracks, because what happened was then my late husband Andy, he said to me, "You're going to have to write your life story," and I wasn't ready for that. I just was not ready for that.
So they pushed you into a position.
So I had to write my life story, and it was like the Olympics was the following year. I wanted to, just relax and look forward to the Olympics, but somehow then I had to crash in and try and write this life story, and this cine film unrolling in front of my eyes, and this emotional tidal wave coming over me with actual the realisation of what my life's been. Never really addressed it. And it
because you've kept moving forward.
Yeah.
And now you're looking back.
And I'd watched my whole life flash by. And then I was trying to deal with the pressure of being successful and having to do after dinner speeches at all these ceremonies, which is something I never liked doing. I got used to it, but I get nervous. And the whole lot was too much for me. I had a nervous breakdown, a physical and nervous breakdown. And it just came crashing down. And in 88, in the winter of 87, and then of course I wasn't able to perform very well. I wasn't sure if I was going to make the 88 Olympics. I eventually did go, and I was lucky. When I say lucky, I called on all my reserves, and I was a very strong-willed person. I don't know where to get that from. and of course I managed to qualify the longest distance in the event at that period of time, and then in the final I was thrown against my greatest arch rival, Petra Felker, who was his German girl, because back then it was East versus West as well, Iron Curtain years, communist countries, and she was my greatest rival. We were usually about 10 metres ahead of the rest of the girls, but I didn't do too bad. I managed to throw 70 metres, but I came second to Petra, who threw 71, I think, 72. But any other Olympics, I mean, had it not been for Petra, that was a
stone cold gold.
That would have been a gold medal, because that was the distance that I threw was better than any other Olympics that had been before. Yeah. But we become a victim of our own success when we set the bar very high. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that was one of my proudest moments, because, from where I came from, and I didn't divulge that. I never ever spoke about it before. For me, it was, one of my proudest moments to come back with a silver medal.
Because you put yourself back together.
Yeah, I put myself back together, and I've showed that I could still come through. But then, of course, the year after that,
the shoulder,
and that it was too much.
You can't will
will
your shoulder better, can you?
And it was in a period of time also where we didn't have keyhole surgery,
right.
James. So what they had done is cut through the nerve box and belt and braced it.
Yeah.
Once you cut through the nerve box, forget any power event.
Can't get back to the strength.
No, you can't. I got back to about 60 metres, but then I would have become a victim of my own success.
Yeah, because everyone's measuring
up against what I've been.
You.
Yeah.
Not against the field,
yeah, exactly.
But against you.
I probably would have made the international team, but it wouldn't have been enough,
I can see that. We've nearly got to the end, but we should talk a little bit more about Fatima's UK campaign. When did you? Because you've had some more misfortune. You lost your Andy, as you said, and there was some debts involved and some difficulties.
Yeah, of course.
So you've had to put yourself together again
Yeah,
financially, and so when did you find the space and time? When did you think, right now? Because I know you've had therapy as well, and a large part of therapy for me was learning how to look after the little version of me, and I presume it's the same for you, is that you're looking after little Fats.
Yeah, I always take the hand of little Fatima and I always say to her, don't worry, I've got you, you're safe.
That's it, isn't it?
Because it is true.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to do the healing work. We've all got to do that at some stage. When we're kids and you live in the care system sector, which a lot of these children do, they're always going to have triggers. As you grow older, unless you do when you get older, you take the responsibility to do your own healing work, because that's so important. Because I left the care system, but the care system never left me.
Gosh.
And the whole point about that is you got to learn to deal with that and get through life, circumnavigate it. And it's no different for me as anybody else. So I've managed to deal with that as life goes on. And depending on how good or bad you're feeling, some days are good and some days are bad. But my ministry today, and I've come back in a full circle.
I love that you use the word ministry, because it is, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is to bring about the awareness of what is needed for our young children in the care system sector and our young people. Because, obviously, as I've said before, the care system sector needs rejuvenating. It desperately needs to be brought back into modern times, and challenged. And the only way in collaboration to succeed is to bring about the embodiment of one, the power of one voice. And that's my aim, to bring a summit once a year. It's non-political, with all the 4 nations to talk and work together to improve the better outcomes for our kids in terms of what the standard of service that they receive, and also to give children hope that change is coming. And the fatimascampaign.com, go on there and help me to do this, because the government's not helping us. I need as much support as I can get in order to put these programs together, because I'm building collaboratively with partnerships happier lives, better communities, and a nicer, kinder society. And the only way we can do that is through working collaboratively. And part of that is to keep our kids out of the crime sector and giving them a sense of belonging, because a lot of the time there's 30% of our kids are in prison, and I say a third of those are from children in the care system. And a lot of the problems is because there's nothing out there for them. And that's what Fatima's UK campaign's trying to do, bring about the power of sport, the power of arts. And in doing these programs, we'll give these kids hope that there's, they can actually have a sense of belonging, stay out of the harm's way of those undesirable people that target them and groom them.
Yeah, of course.
Or because there's nothing out there, they just get involved with the wrong thing and end up in prison. But with these programs, it keeps them focused, they're connected, they have a sense of belonging. We're working in these programs with the community, with schools, with club, with the police. The police know who they are and they know who the police are. Their relationship changes. They feel a sense of worth. They're seen, they're heard, and they're valued. And they can skill up when they get to the age of 18. They can also earn a certificates to be doing a coaching, whether it be in the police force. They can come out with jobs at the end of it. And that's the hope bit, because really that's what we're putting them on, that unstoppable path, that human path to reach their goal, so that they can actually become something and somebody in their life. So when they have families, history won't repeat itself. They'll be able to actually stand on their own feet, provide for themselves and a family too.
Breaking the cycle.
Yes, breaking
like it was
the cycle.
Broken for you.
Exactly. And we do need people to help them do that, and the only way we're going to do that, as I say, is through working in partnerships. And I call upon a lot of companies like John Lewis Partnership, like the police sector, the schools. I'm working with England Football League. I'm working with a safeguarding team with Joseph Lyons, with the London clubs, and all of them have boroughs. So the idea is to get those kids in all those boroughs in these programs,
right?
So they got a safe haven, they're looked after, they connect with somebody, they'll have a role model to work with, and they can come out qualified and have a job. They're not going to fall through the net.
Sure.
They're going to have life opportunities, life-changing opportunities, which we all want.
What's the website again?
It's called Fatima's UK Campaign, but if you go on fatimascampaign.com, find my Just Giving page, please donate as much as you can. Help make a difference to these children's lives. Help me make a difference to these children's lives, because every child deserves the right to a safe and happy childhood.
Fatima Whitbread, thank you.
Thank you, James. It's a pleasure.